Josh van der Fleer got called in late for Dan Levy. There were some great moments from. I thought Josh he just kept going and kept going. But it's hard to pull someone out amongst that group because I thought it was a really meritorious effort.
Well, you're not going to be very popular back home, but congratulations, Joe.
Thanks, Claire.
Good one, Claire. Yeah, I mean, his support has always been good for Irish rugby and Irish rugby teams, but it's gone up a notch for sure. Joe referenced it.
Yeah, well, today was special atmosphere. And Rory Best referenced it during the week, and he referenced it again later after the game, that the crowd do make a difference. They do get you that extra buzz of energy when you need it most.
Well, down in the city centre, it was evident.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the same. Like when you leave the hotel, and there's a buzz around the hotel. There's a buzz coming into the stadium. The crowd's on the way. It lifts everybody. But then you get into this cauldron here. It was really electric. And at the end there, when they really had to dig deep. The crowd keeps you. It makes it extra tackle.
People want to follow winners, and this team, like Leinster, like Munster, like Ulster, have become winners, and people are flocking to the sport. You just saw the reaction out there today. Like, people are still just leaving now. The game's over.
You could have sold this game 10 times over. And the amount of times I'm sure your phones have went off about getting tickets for this game.
Sudden best friend,
sudden coming out of the woodwork.
Well, this.
Everybody wants to be a part of it.
Usually we leave these on the desk behind us because we're a bit blasé about them. This is coming today.
Yeah, and rightly so, mine too. It's a piece of history.
That's yours.
That's yours, Eddie.
You can sign it.
It's interesting to know. You saw the celebration from Bundyaki. It's interesting to know what was going through his mind, and it must be actually fantastic to think.
Huge vindication.
Yes. That's what I was thinking, that he's gone over and said, OK, you kind of, I didn't hang around long enough for the All Blacks or whatever. Now I've gone over, made my life somewhere else, and I've beaten the team that I would have grown up wanting to play for. But that's the whole culture now in the professional game. But
look, there he is.
Result. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah, slapping the Irish crest there.
Everybody talks about the New Zealanders and the winning culture that they have, and even Kieran Reid in his pre-match interview about the confidence and everything. I think Ireland have got that now.
We have a new version of it.
We have a new version of it. And Puppy's talked about the culture that is within this team, and if they can keep this group of players fit and healthy, keep managing them through the Pro 14 and into the Six Nations.
Well, who wants to play, Nick? Look, you've got guys queuing up now to want to play against the US, to want to get into this team. You've got Dan Levy there, and I know Conor Murray's sitting up there and he's clapping up, but he's thinking, God, I wish I was there.
Sure.
Henshaw's there and they're smiling. But as a player, you know yourself, Stephen, you wanted to be out there, and
today's the day you wanted to be out there. It was the biggest game of the year.
I suppose the Grand Slam decider, to be fair, was closer, but we had done that before. This was one of the last redoubts. Now all that's remaining is beating New Zealand in your place, or
a World Cup
and the World Cup, of course, the semi-final or better. Well, okay. Will we take a look at the try that did it for us today? Ultimately, and let's take a look at the try.
Well, it's a starter play because we set it up here and watch Bundyaki switching and then throwing the pass to Stockdale. Great chip over the top. The space was there, as we'll see. But Stockdale is such a great finisher, Watch it again here. Look at that space in the backfield.
We've seen none of this last week. I knew Joe Smith was going to have a couple of things up his sleeve. He always does when it comes to the big games. There was nothing in attack last week. We were just going through the motions, get the win,
this
and then they come with a set play.
This is obviously planned because Stockdale was blocked down earlier, about a minute earlier, 2 minutes earlier. And
we were lucky.
We were lucky. But you can see the change of direction here. It was all planned. Rory Best had the unenviable task of trying to chase Jacob Stockdale. I don't think they're going to catch him, but it was a great finish. And at that moment in the game, it was the moment in the game that, New Zealand were beginning to get a bit of grip on the game. We needed to score to make that statement, and it was enough to rock them back in their socks.
And Johnny Sexton's conversion ultimately didn't come down to it, but we all know, even though he wouldn't say publicly, 2013 ways in his mind when he could have put us 8 up here.
I think Stephen makes a great point. Joe Schmidt coaches his teams to win. Other coaches don't. Other coaches play the same way. And when we saw New Zealand there...
Hang on a minute, every coach...
No, but I mean, he coaches against the opposition. Like, he'll go away in the week and he'll see, just that reverse of play. That happened not by coincidence, happened 2 or 3 times in the game. So every week he looks at where he can beat a team. And what I mean is he coaches that week.
But his timing as well. I mean, you can only use that bullet once, so to speak. You know.
No, he used it a couple. We saw that a couple of times.
Well, you've seen in the first half. I think it was the first line out that we showed Rory Best. Perfect line out. They went 4 phases. When they got to the 15, they were dummied as if they were going to come back, and then they hit the short side again. So they're working on that throughout the week. It's small micro plays. I know that was a bigger play off a line out, but they're working those things week in, week out, and they didn't show their hand last week against Argentina.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's what
I was trying to say, and you said it.
Eddie doesn't get
perfectly.
Argentina was all a black ops, you know. Okay. Yeah. Right, we've a little bit more time, thankfully, so stay with us, and after the break we'll wrap things up and show you some more of the highlights from 80 minutes of highlights. A fantastic test match. Ireland have beaten the All Blacks for the first time in Dublin. And we all know, because of the elastic nature of the clock, that New Zealand are never dead until they're buried. And of all the people, Brodie Retallick fumbling, and that was the signal for Ireland to register a 16-9 win. And then this half haka, half Connachtooly. I have no idea what it is. We'll try and find out. But looks good anyway. A couple more key moments. Before we get to them, Brent, you just wanted to say something?
Just I was just something like, you know, it's been a happy day, but it was a sad week for a lot of Irish internationals who are over. So just my sympathies to Chris Stern, and lost his wife during the week. So Marie, she was a great friend. So just for those Irish guys that are watching it,
heavily involved in the game here. Okay,
lovely woman.
Absolutely, we pass on our sympathies there. Let's just, before we have a look at Peter O'Mahony, I mean, who's such a wonderful example of the modern professional. What's changed, Eddie? Because the contemporary professional that we saw there today, they're so focused, but they do look like a different breed almost to your breed, which was only, 10 years ago?
Well, if you go back 15 years, the Irish team, you had players on the Irish team who had started out as amateurs, like Mick Galway, Keith Wood were amateurs. They transitioned into the professional game, David Humphreys. So we were kind of one leg in each era, you know, and then we transitioned to where fellas like Brian O'Driscoll, Ron McGarr became professionals practically out of college, but they had played a bit in college, maybe for UCD or UCC at that time. But now we've got these guys who are coming out of school, and their vision is to be a professional rugby player. They're playing their rugby in rugby school, their whole focus. So even at that early age, their weight training, their prehab, their diet. Yeah. So these guys are on a mission. So that's the kind of players, and our system is built for that at the moment. It's been fantastic. The school system, the academy system is really delivering. Every year we've got a gem coming out along the way, and that's the key to the depth we have now. We talked about.
Does that play into Joe Schmidt's style, because these guys are drilled? It's process.
Well, not so much that. One of the only things that way back in the day in New Zealand was that there was so many guys breathing down your neck for your shirt that every time you went out to play, you had to deliver. And there was a time when if you got dropped from New Zealand, you never got seen again. Like that was the cap you were dropped for was your last cap.
You also needed the skills to evade men who were twice your size at the age of 12 or 13.
But you look at the competition in that squad now, it's off the charts in most positions. So guys know that every time you get a chance to come into camp, come into train, get on the field, you better shoot the lights out. And that's a big factor in everyone pointing in the same direction at the same time.
You're 33. Do you feel like an old man looking at these guys?
I do, actually, yeah. I've played with a lot of those boys. I was listening to Gary Ringrose in his pre-match interview, and it was almost robotic. You know, some of the stuff that he was coming out, the group. You know, it's all about your individual roles and responsibilities and your preparation, and you know, he's just saying all the right things. But he is actually doing that. You know,
it's working.
That's the Joe pragmatic kind of approach that he takes. And it's rubbing off on all the players, and then when they put a green jersey on, they just seem to go to that plan.
Let's take a look at Peter O'Mahony, Brent. I mean, like a couple of contributions.
Absolutely,
here.
Mate. Well, he looked like he was playing on one leg, and he was. So adrenaline going. You know, he's just developed into one of the best flankers in the world.
Well, that's a penalty against him, in fairness.
Way off feet.
Well, he didn't look to be supporting his weight.
His arms are on
but
the ground,
this was inches. And you talk about key moments, win key matches, when they threaded the ball through, the ball bounces forward there. Then Smith has it, it bounces slightly back, but who's there, O'Mahony? And you put yourself, look at this, like
Is he meant to be there on the pitch, or is that just instinct?
That's his job. It's his job. It's his job.
It's also pushing to get back.
You know?
Not all players will go back with such energy.
That's a great turnover there. Peter O'Mahony gets on the ball, and Rory Best just locks him in, and he keeps him in there. And that's something else they'll be working in training. When somebody gets in on the ball, you lock him in. And I think this was a big turning point in the game.
But that's why when I picked a combination side, Stephen, before the match, I actually said, look, I think that Ireland have better resources than the loose forwards. And that's about the first time I'd ever said, because that wasn't always an area of strength in New Zealand rugby. It was always a loose forward. You know, Michael Jones, Confield.
Artie Surveyor only got one turnover.
He was silenced.
McCaw, you name them. The list of great flankers come out of New Zealand. But suddenly we've got an Irish team.
The fact New Zealand have a big problem at loose head prop now.
Yeah.
You know,
Tyke Furlong ate him.
Tyke Furlong had him, you know, for breakfast there today. And Cian Healy as well, to be fair, had a massive game. I mean,
huge game.
Not just in the scrum, but around the field. He ran himself into the ground. I mean, you saw him coming off. He was
He's a great story, though, isn't it? It's a great story.
This is why
the man couldn't write his own name. He couldn't sign his own name at the height of his injury.
But with all due respect to Peter O'Mahony, who's a phenomenal player, I'm a huge fan of his, it's probably unfair there was a man of the match at all today, because there were so many of the guys, Irish lads today, were just playing out of their skills. You could have been 10 of them got man of the match.
Rob Kearney, we're going to take a look at.
Carney.
Sure, but let's take a look at Rob Kearney, because again, with Rory Best, he's obviously got a more visible role in a game like this.
Well, this is old style Kearney, carrying it back, steps, sells the dummy and goes inside, and off he goes. Those meters were gold at that stage, you know. And here he follows through, gets Barrett and pushes him into touch, so we get the line out 5 minutes from their line. That's huge.
These are all big moments.
They're all big moments, and you know, Justin Marshall said it before the game. There was big moments in this game today. Ireland won most of the big moments.
Sure.
And that was the difference.
There was a lot of talk, you know, should Rob Kearney deserve that 15 jersey before the last couple of weeks? If there's a performance that shows that he fully deserves it, and he's the best for me in the world in the number 15 jersey.
Can we kill that chap now if he's fit, because it's been on too long.
Well, in fairness to him, when he was being criticised at his most, he just had a long string of injuries. He's the kind of player that needs a run of games under his belt, and he finds his form. Like, you know, form is temporary, class is permanent, and he's a class player, but he was unlucky with injuries so often.
He's just so reliable
that he couldn't get that momentum. But now he's been managed well, and you see what you get when you get him on a run.
I probably wouldn't want to be called reliable, because that's maybe a kind of a backhanded compliment. But for a guy you mentioned before the game, when you're playing in a back line and you know your goalkeeper is a safe pair of hands, you know that he's going to be positioned well, you've just got a confidence to be able to play.
And he's got an instinct. The ball seems to arrive.
Well, he cuts down options.
That's not an accident. He knows where to be.
He's got 100 games, whatever. You know,
his experience is huge.
Tackle count for James Ryan. I heard it in my ear. I have an advantage. Guess.
28.
Come on. 20. 19, 20. Yeah.
What a phenomenon he...
He just seemed to be everywhere.
We didn't mention
how old is he? 21, 22?
Don't know.
He's got to be up there in the... Well, he proved today he's got to be up there as the best second in the world at that age.
Well, if you're picking a Lions team in the morning, which is always a barometer, he's in there, you know, straight away.
What about the Six Nations now? 2 home games against, well, what used to be the big 2. Where, like,
you'd still worry about teams being able to put on a performance like Ireland put in today. You'd worry about an England or a France. You see, Ireland now have a massive target on their backs. Now, we know they did beforehand, but now they have a worldwide target. The teams now are starting to say, OK, do we avoid the All Blacks? It's Ireland we don't want to play.
It's a good Six Nations in that it's the odd year. You've got France and England and Dublin.
Here,
and then you've got to go to Cardiff and Rome and Edinburgh, which you'd always like to feel you can get those jobs done. So it stacks up well. But I don't think, like, I think, as Poppy rightly says, there's a bigger target on our back than ever before now. Everyone wants, like, if you can get one over in Ireland now, you're really...
So I think New Zealand actually will probably think, when they look at it in the light of day, they'll probably think, OK, better to happen now to give us some time to rebuild, find a different position.
Yeah, but I think it's a good problem that Joe Smith has for the Six Nations, is because he's got an opportunity there to maybe test out a few of the guys like Tadhg Byrne on the fringes, who probably deserved an opportunity over the last couple of weeks, and will get his chance next week. There are loads of fringe players.
He has to be careful
before the World Cup,
Stephen, because every team that plays us now are going to come at us like their lives depend on it.
Yeah,
because they're going to be afraid we'll do a number on them.
Yeah.
So the key now is momentum. You've got to take this momentum and so plant it into this.
Keep running with it.
Keep running with it.
I don't
and dampen down expectations as well, which, you know, for once today they were huge.
Well, good luck with that.
And we delivered. How do you do that? Expectation management. Now, today's scores, let's give you a look. Germany 10, Canada 29. Well, is that important? Well, it looks like Canada have taken a huge step towards the World Cup qualification through that. England after trailing at half-time, took care of Japan. Ultimately, Australia comfortable against Italy. South Africa, Scotland, you can see yet again Scotland